On this day, 1994, Luc Besson's spectacular action thriller Leon opens in theaters.
I told you. Betty, bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
Everyone!
And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Monday evening here with me in New York. Well, once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So I am going to start a new series on Christmas movies, kind of like what I did with the Halloween horror, where it's not going to be an everyday thing, but certainly 2 or 3 times a week until we get to, in this case, the big day being Christmas. But not tonight. Not tonight. Because today, marks the 30th anniversary of what is, to me, easily in the top 10 all-time best action thrillers. Even though it's a movie where there's multiple versions floating around out there in the Nexus to see or not see. There's a theatrical cut, there's an international cut, there's a director's cut, but I have seen 2 different versions of this film. I've seen the director's cut and the so-called theatrical cut, and they are both great. The movie, of course, celebrating its 30th anniversary today of being released in the United States, is Luc Besson's Leon, which was released on November 18, 1994 as The Professional. So in the United States, there was no title Leon. It was not called Leon the Professional. The title was simply The Professional. And this is a film that is, I hate to say stuff like this because you know that I see movies differently than most people, but it is a film that has very problematic content, and it has been discussed and debated. This is not a new debate because there is an idea and a sense that Hollywood and movies around the world were always very permissive, and then all of a sudden some kind of thought police or whatever you want to say woke up and said, well, now we can't do this. That's not true. That is completely not true. In fact, if anything, Hollywood, you couldn't get away with shit with that rating system. You had serious movies, real films, not pornos, like Last Tango in Paris 50 plus years ago, Angel Heart 1987. You had movies like that, Henry and June, where they were not pornos and they were not allowed into regular theaters in the original versions that the directors intended. Bernardo Bertolucci as far as Last Tango in Paris, Alan Parker as far as Angel Heart, and there were many other movies that felt the sting of Jack Valenti and the MPAA rating system fucking around with people, and there was a lot of talk about censorship and Valenti's a Nazi and just all of this sort of stuff. So when people act as if something that is called problematic, well, this didn't used to be. No, it was. It's just we're in a social media era and everything is heightened. So the movie Leon, as it's now known, Leon the Professional, is a great film. And even though there are elements that you say, well, when the movie was released originally in France, and I think it was released in France, so Luc Besson is French, and it was mostly funded with European money, which is strange because it's set entirely in the Manhattan of, let's say, circa 1993. The film in the original version in Europe does contain significantly more of what we would call problematic elements, because the primary relationship in the story, it is a platonic relationship. Make no mistake about it and no bones about it. The character of Matilda, played by really wonderful Natalie Portman in her film debut, meets by chance, because she's about to be executed, an assassin, a hitman, or as he calls himself, a cleaner, named Leon, played magnificently by Jean Reno, who later went on to have a pretty big career in the United States, although primarily worked in France. But you remember him, he was in the original Mission Impossible. He's terrific with Cruise. And then he has a big role, it's kind of a funny role, in the 1998 Roland Emmerich Godzilla. So they meet by chance, and he's an assassin, and she's a young girl who, spoiler alert, has watched most of her family get executed by a dirty cop, more or less, and that's played brilliantly by Gary Oldman. And where the hell was his Best Supporting Actor nomination for this unbelievable performance? But Leon takes her in. He doesn't want to. His instinct is to not get involved in these kinds of things. But he knows exactly what's going to happen. He's in the business of death, and that's the irony, that a guy in the business of death just happens to live in the same building as a young girl whose parents get involved, or the father gets involved with very, very bad people, corrupt cops, etc., etc. So the relationship between Leon and Matilda develops. And seeing the theatrical cut, so where I'm going with this whole idea of permissiveness and people, the thought police and everything, and you can't get away with anything anymore and all of this kind of stuff, which is, these are real debates that I like to have, because they're not as one-sided as some people would like you to believe. Again, when you're a historian like me, you can give chapter and verse of 50 years ago, people complaining that we can't do anything anymore because everybody gets offended. Sound familiar? Yeah, everything old is new again. But I saw the theatrical version of Leon. And honestly, seeing it at age 21, I rented it. I didn't catch the film in theaters, but I took it out of Blockbuster when it hit, because a lot of people had told me, bro, you should have seen it in theaters. You know, I was at NYU Film School, and a lot of my fellow cinema studies majors said, bro, you got to see. For whatever reason, I just didn't see it. I was going to the movies a lot in that era, but I did not see The Professional in theaters. When I rented it and I saw it, honestly, it didn't seem creepy or weird. It didn't seem cringy. And this is something that Natalie Portman has discussed recently, and she's willing to talk about it. The movie made her career. She's phenomenal. She doesn't regret doing the film, but at the same time, she says, yeah, I don't think Luke would have made the movie the same way if he made it today. That's just an admission that the world has changed. It's not good or bad. It's just a 1 + 1 = 2. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, as a movie fan, seeing the theatrical cut, meaning the one they released in the United States as The Professional, it did not seem creepy or weird. I got the idea that Matilda had fallen in love in a 12-year-old girl, not a sexual way, in the theatrical cut. She had fallen in love with her protector, but it did not come across as cringy. It just didn't. Now, you can get mad at me and say, well, you suck, you had the wrong take, but I'm just telling you how it hit me when I was 21. When I did more reading on the film and it realized that, okay, there was a lot more stuff that sounds like it could be cringy in Luc Besson's original cut, or what you would call a director's cut. Now, I didn't see the director's cut until probably about a dozen years ago. And I saw it on DVD because I love the movie. This is one of the great action films. And I understood why they didn't want to release that cut in the United States, because it's a better movie. It gives a fuller picture of the story and the relationship between Matilda and Leon, for better or worse, but it's not necessary for what I believe Besson was really trying to tell a story of basically a simple-minded, he's almost an autistic savant, but when it comes to the business of killing, he's a fucking genius. He's a 200 IQ in the business of killing. But he's a simple man. He has his plant. He likes to drink milk. He does his exercise, and he doesn't want to get involved. It is a really beautiful story. And the distributors over here, this is something, as I always say, you can Google. I don't want you thinking I'm just making stuff up. But the distributors loved the film, but they just knew that it wasn't going to play. And so they had Besson, or I don't know if Besson prepared two cuts, like that part I don't know. But they knew that the film was great, that it had a chance to become an iconic action movie, which it absolutely did and is. And it's another film that gained even more of a following on home video and cable. And then again, when you have the opportunity to see an original cut as a director intended. You want to talk Blade Runner, of those kinds of films, Brazil, or Legend, speaking of Ridley Scott, with so many with the director's cut being so much better than any kind of theatrical version. Sorry. But the movie plays brilliantly in whatever format you watch it in, whatever version. It's just different levels of great. And the way that I would compare it in terms of, director's cuts and whatnot is James Cameron's Aliens is a great film, regardless of if you watch the so-called director's cut, which is the preferred cut of James Cameron, and my preferred cut, or the theatrical version. The theatrical version is what I saw probably 10 times before having the opportunity to see James Cameron's director's cut. Both films are great, and both versions of The Professional are fantastic. So for those who don't know, I like to steer clear of spoilers. Don't like giving shit away. But the movie is about a 12-year-old girl who has a very difficult family structure. Her father has gotten involved with gangsters. The mom seems like a bubblehead. She loves her baby brother, and the baby brother is presented as such a sweet and kind soul. Even in the brief times we get to see him, she does not have a dysfunctional relationship with her brother, is what I'm saying. The parents might be dysfunctional. The father is a clown, all that. But she loves her brother. And when the shit hits the fan and Leon comes to her rescue, she knows who has, and the people who are behind the disaster that's taken place, that has put her with Leon. And she vows to get vengeance. And yeah, there are certain people that objected to the idea of a 12-year-old girl wanting to commit murder. But that didn't bother me either. It made perfect sense that she would be in a rage at what has taken place. And then you say, well, she's just a kid. She can't really do very much. And from a certain point of view, you'd be right. But you could teach a 12-year-old kid how to detonate a bomb, right? I still didn't have any issue with any of those segments. And Gary Oldman, it's weird how this works, because Gary Oldman has played way more batshit bonkers characters than, for example, everyone's favorite lunatic, Willem Dafoe, because Willem Dafoe just has a very distinctive look. But Gary Oldman has played a lot, way more batshit bonkers characters than Willem Dafoe. I would say probably triple. He had another movie that came out around the same time, a film that got a big build-up. It didn't quite hit the way people expected, with Lena Olin. Was it Lena Olin? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Lena Olin. It was called Romeo is Bleeding, where he also plays a cop who's crossed the line. That's a phrase that you hear a lot in movies. He's a cop who's crossed the line, where he's just flat out corrupt. The character that Gary Oldman plays in Romeo is Bleeding is a corrupt cop, but he's not a villain. He's actually the protagonist of the film. That was one of those edgy movies where, okay, the hero is not really heroic, but he's less horrendous than everyone else, so we're going to root for him. In Leon, there is no redemptive quality to Doug Stansfield. That's the character Gary plays. The only redemptive quality, if you want to call it that, is he's a fan of Beethoven. He's a fan of Mozart. So then you want to get into the angle of, Alex in A Clockwork Orange, when he's just raping, murdering, stealing, and pillaging, and saying, well, at least he likes Beethoven. Yeah, you know what? Go fuck yourself. That's not good enough. You got to do better than, well, he likes Beethoven's what? So that means he's okay? No, he's horrendous. The story follows these two entirely different personalities in Leon and Matilda. And Jean Reno has spoken of how he tried to play the character as, he doesn't say autistic. I'm using the word. I think this guy is on the spectrum. That's just how he's presented. But what Jean Reno has said is that he wanted to portray him as somebody who was simple-minded. I don't actually agree with that. I don't see Leon as simple-minded. I see him just as somebody who has the incredible tunnel vision of a person who's on the spectrum. And that if he gets deflected off what he's trying to do, even if it's something as simple as where his plant is, he's going to have problems. And it's no joke. It's real. when you have somebody with these issues, what appears to be a molehill can actually be Mount Everest. But the film doesn't belabor that. We get the idea that despite what he does for a living, he's not really a terrible guy. And we've seen other movies where you have people who have worked as assassins. Sylvester Stallone in the movie Assassins, now that I think about it, which came out the following year, he and Banderas, and that's not really a great movie. It's okay. But Stallone's character has an altruistic, like he's not real committed to just bumping people off. He wants there to be an actual reason. And he's not like the Saint where he has a shit ton of money and he's giving it to charities. Stallone's character is doing a job, and he's killed a lot of people and he's made a lot of money. But he does have a heart. The character of Doug Stansfield is heartless. The character of Leon in this movie is a good guy. He's a way better human being than even Sly in Assassins. And as the case with so many classic movies of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the location work in New York City, in Leon, it's great. Now, I don't know if Luc Besson had people who were from America or part of the studio system, because as I said, the movie, if it wasn't entirely funded by European funds, it was mostly whoever he had working for him to scout the locations in Manhattan and then to shoot where they shot. They did a great job. The city looks awesome. And there are so many movies of that era that where you say to yourself, boy, the city looks beautiful. You know, the previous year's Manhattan Murder Mystery, the Woody Allen film, which uses some similar, there might even be some shots that are almost the same, but that's a movie that moves all over the city, from lower Manhattan to upper Manhattan, Bryant Park, all of these fantastic, very cinematic looking locations, Madison Square Garden, Penn Station. And another actor I absolutely adore, the late Danny Aiello. I recently talked about him in the Jacob's Ladder episode, which was about 3.5 years prior. Danny Aiello was an actor who he could be menacing, but he just had a certain warmth. And in some of his more intimidating roles, he used that to his advantage because he can come across like he's your buddy when he's really not. And in this film, that quality that Aiello had, and he was best supporting actor for Moonstruck in 87. I think he was nominated. I don't think that he won. Not sure about that. But Aiello plays a crime boss in this film. He plays a crime boss that works with Leon, and I think he even gets Leon some of the gigs that he gets. And then because of the association with Leon, he meets Matilda and he gets to know her. Aiello is so resourceful that I'm not sure about this guy. I don't really know, is this character a villain or is this character somebody who is really not really that bad? He's not all bad. I don't know. And I feel like it's because of the warmth in Aiello's speaking voice, the way that he rarely raises his voice, the fact that he has such a sense of poise and command in front of the camera. And he did another movie in the early 2000s that I absolutely love, a cross between Goodfellas and a classic 90s film, Big Night, with Tony Shalhoub and Stanley Tucci as two brothers who own a restaurant in New Jersey that serves fine dining when fine dining was really not what people wanted in that era. They just wanted spaghetti and meatballs from an Italian place. Danny Aiello is technically the lead in a movie called Dinner Rush, and he gives a similar performance. He's playing a similar kind of character. He's playing a guy in some way must be connected to organized crime, and he has a restaurant, and the mob, other areas of the mob are trying to move in on him, and in the same exact kind of way as his line readings in The Professional. It's oddly enough, playing a chiropractor in Jacob's Ladder, it's a much broader performance, and he actually raises his voice a couple of times in that film, whereas when he's playing presumably somebody who with a snap of the finger is killing people, he's calm, he's mellow. Hey, can I get you soda? Maybe you want a little ice cream. You know, I'm here to help, whatever. But Aiello in Dinner Rush, awesome, and a great movie. John Corbett, you know, from My Best Friend's Wedding, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. He's terrific in that film. Just awesome movie in a kind of thriller, drama, comedy range. But Aiello hits every mark. It's not a big role. It's very much a supporting performance. But whenever he's on screen, you're like, you don't know what's going to happen because you know what his character represents. Now, the other thing that Luc Besson did well, and this shouldn't be a surprise, because you look at films such as The Fifth Element that he did, he is a terrific director of action. And the choreography of the action sequences, it's fantastic. Because there are setups where you almost would expect in 2024 that special effects, well, they had to have used special effects. Everything is practical. Everything was mechanical, done during production, whether it was squibs, whether it was booby traps. It's great work. And Besson also had that kind of radar sense in this film, knowing exactly how to frame everything and exactly how to build tension, sometimes close-ups, sometimes there are longer takes, and other times he goes with the more rapid cutting. But there are memorable moments in 90s cinema. And Gary Oldman got one of what I think are 10 most memorable individual moments in 90s cinema. It's towards the end of the film where I'm not sure if it's that he thinks that Leon has been neutralized, or I'm not 100% exactly, but he realizes we got a big problem. And we got to take care of this guy once and for all. That's it. We got to kill him. We got to kill the girl. He doesn't say that, but we as the audience know that that's where this is going. And he turns to, I guess, his partner, Benny. And Gary Oldman he's exasperated. He's exasperated because this is exactly what he expected. The shit's hitting the fan. It's Murphy's Law. We're screwed. And of course, he's coming across like he's, why is this happening to me? As if he's really the good guy and not scumbag villain. But he says to his partner, he says, Benny, bring me everyone. Now, watching the movie, we know what that means. He means get all of the blue and white cop cars, get them all down here. No fucking around. Get them down here. You want to bring SWAT? Get them down here. Bring me everyone. And the guy just says, oh, and the camera is on Gary Oldman. They don't flip the shot to the other guy. We see him in profile. His partner goes, what do you mean, everyone? And Gary Oldman, with his neck cords bulging, seemingly with sweat dripping down his face, and his eyes just about to, you talk about Willem Dafoe, his eyes just about to pop out of his head. He doesn't just say the word everyone. He doesn't simply scream the word everyone. He almost sounds out the syllables to everyone. It's one of the best moments in all of 90s cinema, and it happens in this film, and it happens in each version of this film. So this is not the sort of story where we can kind of surmise how it's going to turn out. And for reference, another huge action movie from 1994, we had True Lies, James Cameron again with Arnold and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they play a married couple, and turns out the guy is a super spy. She thinks he's a computer salesman. That's a movie we can be pretty sure neither Arnold nor Jamie Lee are going to get bumped off. There is going to be some version of a happy ending. It's not going to involve either of them dying, or their daughter, Eliza Dushku. She's not going to die. Spoiler alert. We just know the movie. Speed. Keanu Reeves. Speed 2 was with Willem Dafoe as the big bad, but the first one, Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, Joe Morton, love the guy, of course, Terminator 2, and Dennis Hopper. The late, great Dennis Hopper, maybe the greatest villain in history in Blue Velvet, Frank Booth. But in the movie Speed, we are pretty sure that our intrepid heroes, played by Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, Jack Traven, great name, we're pretty sure they're going to survive. Well, in the movie Leon, which came out, as I say, about 4 or 5 months after Speed, and about 4 months after True Lies, which came out, I think, July 15th, we don't know how this is going to turn out. Because Leon is a morally compromised gray area kind of character, and historically, even in a Hollywood production, although this was European, there was some Hollywood, money in there somewhere, maybe just a distribution, but Besson made his film. But the point is, a morally ambiguous gray area kind of character, even if he has his heart in the right place. 1993, Kevin Costner in A Perfect World, good example. You don't know what a happy ending would be. This guy has committed murder, etc., etc. What would a happy ending entail is there any way that Leon can survive this story? Well, if you don't know, you have to watch the movie to find out. But there is tension if you're a movie fan, as I was, because I didn't know. Nobody had spoiled it, and I couldn't instantly say, well, because he did this, therefore the movie has to end like, no. Besson made his movie, played by his own rules. But when you look back on it, I feel like the film ends as it should, and realistically the only plausible ending, where this isn't the kind of movie that is going to just have nothing but a gut punch, horrendous ending where everybody dies and Gary Oldman gets away with it. This is not the 1970s. If this were made in the 70s, maybe. But in the 90s, although there were a lot of movies that kind of skirted what I'm talking about, where, you know, the hero doesn't necessarily win. There's certainly a lot of film noir where the hero doesn't necessarily win, but it doesn't mean that all of the protagonist type characters get bumped off. But I like the way this movie wraps up, and I love Danny Aiello's final scene with Natalie Portman. And Natalie, she's so good. She's so good. She's such a terrific actress. And in this movie, you could just see the gears turning. She's not, okay, she's cute, but no, she gives a real three-dimensional, fully formed performance. I mean, you almost could have nominated her for Best Actress, right? They did the previous year, Anna Paquin, Best Supporting Actress, which she ended up winning for The Piano, and Holly Hunter ended up winning Lead Actress for The Piano. That was unbelievable. Holly Hunter was expected to win. Anna Paquin, big surprise. A lot of people actually thought Rosie Perez for the Peter Weir film Fearless, which should have done better with critics. I mean, that's practically a masterpiece, one of Jeff Bridges' best performances. But I digress. I'm sorry. I always digress. Leon, in any version, is a phenomenal film. It is a peer of the Die Hards, Face Offs, Speeds, True Lies, Predator. It is a peer of those great action classics, especially of that amazing best decade ever for Hollywood, the 1990s. Luc Besson's Leon the Professional, released on this day, 1994, starring Jean Reno, Natalie Portman, Gary Oldman, and a really terrific Danny Aiello. This has been episode 361 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Monday evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.